He derives pleasure from even the most trivial occupations, bringing his talent into play. He is fond of enigmas, of conundrums, of hieroglyphics, exhibiting in his solutions of each and all a degree of acumen which appears to the ordinary apprehension preternatural. His results, brought about by the very soul and essence of method, have in truth the whole air of intuition. Greetings, Poe fans, and welcome back to one of our degree episodes. And this begins our degree episodes for season 5. And Jeanie, what are we tackling tonight?
This is a literature one. Of course, we always got to start with the top. Got to go the lit way. And we're going to discuss pretty much kind of the fan fiction that has developed from Poe's wonderful detective. You know, he is the father of the detective. So we're going to discuss, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and his love and inspiration to Poe and Poe's detective, Dupin.
Yes, and we have a huge bonus tonight. It's not just me and Jeanie you get to listen to, but we have brought on 2 of our special guests that have been with us before on Poe discussions, as well as regulars on Poe Unplugged. We love them both, Micah Cover and Steve Boilard.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Yes.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
So to get us started, let's just talk about kind of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's background. He was born May 22nd, 1859 in Edinburgh, Scotland, which I don't think I knew that he was born in Scotland.
Isn't it Edinburgh?
Edinburgh.
Technically, yes.
Okay.
I've
never heard it called
Edinburgh.
Yeah. I was like, it's pronounced Edinburgh? Okay. Sorry.
This was
I thought we were talking about a different town. I've never heard of Edinburgh.
You'll have
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, you'll have to excuse me because this is my first Monday of school today. So
yeah. That would do it.
He was in his 70s when he died, and he died July 7th, 1930 in Sussex, England. And so he was a physician as well as obviously a writer. And he basically created Sherlock Holmes around 1887 with the first novel, A Study in Scarlet, which I've read. It's been a while since I've read it, but it's fantastic. Do you guys want to add anything here?
Yeah, go for it, Steve. I would love to hear what you have to say about it.
I was just interested to hear what you're going to say. I guess the only thing I would just add, kind of playing off of what Carmen was just saying, is that Doyle was spending long hours in his consulting room without anybody showing up, and so he started filling his time by writing these stories. It wasn't really he wasn't seeing himself as a writer first. He saw himself as a doctor first, but again, it was more of a pastime, and he began to publish it and it eventually eclipsed his medical work.
Okay.
But Micah, please.
Thank you, Steve. That's a fantastic summation. And yeah, it's a great introduction to Holmes for lots of reasons, because if you're a nerd like myself and you go through the entire, what they call canon, all the stories, you see how much Sherlock Holmes evolves, especially through the eyes of Watson. In Study in Scarlet, Watson doesn't know who the heck this guy is, like the rest of us, like the rest of the world. And by the end of the canon, they become very famous, probably the most famous best friends in literature. And so now Watson knows everything about this guy, and we learn so much more about Holmes over time, over the canon, through Watson's eyes, and it all begins with that story.
That's neat. Yeah, again, I've read several of the short stories. I've definitely read that particular story. It's been so long ago that I probably should have refreshed myself with it, but because I remember it being fantastic. So over from what I could tell from the what I would say Holmes Doyle, I interchange them. Doyle wrote, he wrote around 4 novels and 56 short stories in the Holmes canon, which is, you know, a ton more than Poe did because Poe only did the 3 short stories, which are longer short stories. Um, Probably they're not quite close to novelette status, but close, I would say. But Doyle also dabbled in well, besides detective fiction, he did fantasy, he did sci-fi, historical novels, and nonfiction. And I don't think I realized that he had a wider canon of work besides the home stories than what he did.
And that's something that frustrated Doyle because he considered the home stories be, a trifle. He didn't consider it be the serious literature because he was doing historical novels and a number of other kinds of works. But he's just known as the writer of the home stories.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's right. He created the Lost World for us. Steven Spielberg might not have had a career in the '90s. Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones was already quote unquote done. The trilogy was over,
Hmm.
and we keep forgetting that it was Arthur Conan Doyle who gave us the Lost World. He also created one of my other favorite characters, a guy named Professor Challenger, who was a professor and an academic, but he also did, in at least one of the stories, genuinely believe in the supernatural, more or less echoing Arthur Conan Doyle's feelings about spiritualism. And we could talk all day just about his writings and his involvement in spiritualism. And as Steve mentioned, Holmes was almost an afterthought for him. It was a way of making money, and he killed them off. And I'm sure we'll talk about that later. Brought him back because everybody was furious, including his own mom. And yeah, that's true. That's true. His mom wrote him a letter. What are you doing, son? So is his mom, who was one of the reasons why we have as many Sherlock Holmes stories as we do.
Hmm.
And yeah, he was one of the most prolific writers ever to have lived. And Sherlock Holmes is so iconic, it's easy to forget all the other things that Doyle did.
Okay. Yeah, that I was going to say, you guys are teaching me some things because I just knew just an overview of him. And so I was going to say, Micah, since you brought up the spiritualism part of it, I did read that in 1920, he met Harry Houdini because of spiritualism. So do you guys have information on that? Because I was very curious about that.
Yeah, yeah. Take it away, Steve.
Well, the only I contribute is, Houdini was well known for trying to expose frauds.
Mhm.
That was one of his main things. As a guy who was doing all of this stage work, he nothing would upset him more than people that were taking advantage of people through fraud, and so he would expose spiritualist frauds. And what's so interesting to me, and probably to many other people, is Doyle was so credulous about spiritualism and the most ham-handed frauds Doyle would fall for and think that they were legit. And this is the man who created the Sherlock Holmes character, who was this rational, calculating machine.
Mhm.
So there's really just this, I think, kind of contrast between the Holmes that Doyle created and his own kind of gullibility when it comes to spiritualism. But Micah, please.
Yeah, gullibility is a fantastic way of describing him because, as you say, he created the most uh, logical literary figure in history. And yet, at the same time, a couple of young girls cut out some photos out of a magazine, said they were fairies, and Doyle bought it. He
Yeah.
said, aha, finally photographing it. Yeah, the Cottingley fairies. They even made a movie about it with Harvey Keitel. And a couple of young girls said, yeah, these are fairies. We took photos, and Doyle bought it. And Houdini was like, I don't know about this. And that really summed up their, I hesitate to say friendship because they became bitter enemies at the end.
Oh, wow.
One of the straws that broke the Casper's back, if you don't mind mixing my metaphors,
I
is
love it.
when yeah, yeah, someone should put that in one of the bios. But anyway, so Doyle invites Harry Houdini to a séance with Doyle's wife, a woman named Jean Leckie, and Jean Leckie conducts the séance and says, "We're going to attempt to contact your mom." And she does, and she does something called automatic writing. You've probably seen this in movies and
Mhm.
such, where the medium is overcome by the spirit and starts writing frantically on a pad of paper. And after the seance, everybody sifts through the pages, trying to figure out what was it the spirit was saying. And Jean Leckie insisted that these written messages were from Harry Houdini's mom. And apparently, at first, Houdini was so excited that he thought, "Oh my God, finally my mom has spoken to me. This is wonderful." And then it didn't take Houdini long to look over these pages. And this is still so controversial. People still debate what the heck was going on here, but this is essentially what it was. It was written in English. And Houdini said, "My mom didn't know English. She spoke German. She was also Jewish, probably knew Yiddish, didn't know any English." And Jean Leckie said, "Oh, she converted in heaven." Apparently, that's one of the things that Houdini's mom did, was convert. And then he said, "Yeah, but there's a cross on the top of one of the pages. Like I said, my mom's Jewish, and yeah. So it was, she converted, and it was also in English." And so not only did she convert to Christianity, she also took community college courses to learn the extra language. So she converted to Judaism, learned English at community college in the clouds, and then Houdini also said, "Oh, by the way, it's a birthday in the family. Why did mom not mention that?" And Jean Leckie says, "Well, she's kind of busy. She is dead, taking all those classes at community college in the sky and converting to a completely different religion." So and apparently they were already separating as friends, but that was the thing. And as Steve said, Houdini was sick of these spiritualists taking advantage of people in mourning. And Houdini realized, "Oh my God, that's me right now."
Mhm.
And that was one of the things that caused this irreparable rift between them. And then they became bitter enemies. But yeah, so Houdini's mom got a lot done. When I die, I hope I can get that much done in a day as a ghost.
Yes.
Yeah, so, yeah, yeah.
Take all those classes
Well,
that you always wanted to.
Well, my thing
yeah.
is if she's dead, why does she need to take community classes?
Yeah.
So
Because
that she could learn English, because you got to have enough credits in order to attend a séance. You got to have enough
oh
credits
Lord.
from the dean.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that
yeah.
that is just the most asinine thing ever. I'm like, I'm sorry. Where in heaven is there a community college? I'm sorry. Why would they? And if she was going to take classes, why not take it at some like Ivy League or something, not just community college? I mean, come on. You're in heaven. Go pick something that's really up there. Go to Columbia or go to Brown or Penn or, Princeton. Pick something. Harvard, maybe. I don't know. But community college? And why would she want to learn English? If she was German and she was Jewish, to beat it all,
Yeah.
why would she convert when she got to heaven?
So I think all this stuff is what kind of graded on Houdini,
Houdini.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and again, I think it had him kind of disgusted that Conan Doyle, who was so revered by an adoring public, and who had solved real life mysteries, crimes on
Mhm.
his own by applying Holmes's methods. This guy was so easily taken in, and so Houdini didn't want to be part of it, and that, as Micah said, that kind of creates this rift where he's saying, "Who are you? it's kind of hard to recognize the same Doyle as the author of the home stories.
Yeah, and I think Jean was his second wife, correct?
Right. Yeah.
So, and his first wife was Louisa Hawkins, and I think she died in 1906, and then he married Jean like in 1907. So, were the two women different? And I wonder if Jean maybe was more influential about the spiritualism than the previous Mrs. Doyle or Conan Doyle. You kind of wonder.
Yeah. That's pretty interesting. Take it away, Steve. I want to hear what you have to say about
Oh,
it.
no. I couldn't opine on that. I'm looking to you.
Oh, okay, okay.
I'm just
Suckers. Well,
pondering.
anyway,
I'm just pondering.
yeah. Carmen, you bring up a really good point, and it's part of the controversy about Arthur Conan Doyle's two wives, because toward the end of her life, Miss L was very sick. She was an invalid. She was bedridden a lot,
Hmm.
and during that time, he met Jean Leckie,
Okay.
and Arthur Conan Doyle kind of used Watson as an avatar. Watson is a very honorable man with a U because it's England, and a very honorable man, and that's how Doyle saw himself. And it is very unclear what, if anything, happened between Doyle and Leckie while his first wife was still alive.
Okay.
As far as we know, they didn't go into a full flung affair, but there are some biographers who said, "Oh yeah, they were totally hooking up." But Doyle was doing his best to do the right thing and not make anything official until about a year after the death of his wife. And of course, a year is a quote unquote acceptable time to be in mourning. And once that year's over, like, damn, let's hook up. And that's kind of what Doyle did. And kind of like what you suggested, Carmen, Jean Leckie did believe that she was a medium. She did believe she was a sensitive.
Hmm.
But there are some biographers who claim that Doyle kind of pushed her into it a little bit,
Oh,
that
wow.
he was pressuring her to do these things. So, yeah, and it's all very controversial. And you can find evidence that will uh, tilt the seesaw one way or another, whatever you need. And so he was just kind of like Steve was saying, he's just a very complicated guy.
Yeah. He really was more than I even like anticipated. It would kind of this kind of makes me want to find a really good biography and that is trusted sources and things like that to read more about him.
Yeah, you know what? Get Rufus Griswold. I hear that guy is the best when it comes to biographies. He's already written at least one, so think about it. Yeah, maybe you could hold a seance with Gene Leckie and see what he has to say.
Absolutely.
I can't remember the name of the author. Is it
Mhm.
Stowespicer? I can't remember the name, but the name of the biography is Teller of Tales.
Okay. Write that
About Arthur
down.
Conan Doyle, and I think that it's well documented. I think it's very respected.
Okay,
Uh,
perfect. Yeah, I'm writing
Daniel Stashower, maybe Steve. Daniel
yes,
Stashower.
yes.
Boom.
That's it.
Yes.
Daniel.
Daniel Stashower.
Okay.
Yeah, and Steve's right. A lot of people consider that kind of the biography Bible for Doyle. And fun fact, Daniel Stashower wrote one of the best pastiches of Sherlock Holmes meets Harry Houdini ever. It was one of the first pastiches I ever read. And I was like, no way, you can't do that. And he did. And it was brilliant. So if you ever have time, take a look at it.
Definitely. So, yes, I wrote that down, and I have a to be read list that it may take me until I'm
Keeps getting longer and longer.
yes.
Yeah, right? Yeah, you don't have enough to read.
I know it. I know it.
Take
So,
it into the mausoleum with you, and that's why you have something to do.
yeah, that's what I'll
There
be
you go.
doing.
Yeah.
Hey, if,
I'm
if
gone.
somebody can, go to community college in heaven, you can read after you're dead.
Yeah,
So,
that's great.
I'll just take them with me or bring
exactly.
a heavenly Kindle or something.
There you go.
Okay, so let's now we kind of did kind of an overview of Doyle, and he died again in 1930, leaving a huge legacy for so many pop culture references, movies, fan fiction, everything you can name. And some of the iterations where, they've made Watson a female character and, like through the show Elementary and those kinds of things. And so it's just, it's his detective is more popular than Poe's, who created it. But when you really look at the two detectives, and Poe was a huge inspiration for Doyle. He totally admits that, he based, Holmes on Dupin, and Dupin being French. And he even used locked room mysteries. A lot of the characteristics about the two, they were both analytical, they were logical, they were observers. They, used deduction, and, Dupin, said more ratiocination, but it's the same thing. And they both had their sidekick. And I wish Poe would have given that unnamed narrator a name. That would have made my day. But you know, then the bumbling police. And so it's basically Holmes took Doyle took Poe's formula and ran with it. And, obviously creating some new styles of mysteries that Poe did not, that are fantastic. And so, you kind of want to say, do you feel like it was a copycat? What are your thoughts on all this? Because I love both. I love both. Like, if I've been trying to watch all the Basil Rathbone Sherlock
Oh
Holmes
yeah.
movies. They're fun. And I started in order, and I think I've watched 3. I love Sherlock Holmes. Love Dupin. So just thoughts on that, because they are so much alike. Little different, but the formula is the same.
Well,
I see the Jeannie.
I was just going to say that, well, from what we've already, discussed, is that Doyle didn't really think of his Sherlock Holmes as being his bread and butter, so to speak.
Yeah.
He thought it was just a quick, and I think that says more than anything how he was mimicking Poe, because we all know that Dupin was pretty much just a serial in a newspaper of stories.
Mhm.
He did not mean them, or magazines. Was it a magazine or whatever?
Magazine.
A periodical. We'll just say a
Yeah,
periodical.
there you go.
Uh, and it was not meant to be something that he was going to go forward with. It wasn't a character that showed up in any other stories or anything. It was something that he just created kind of off the cuff. So if you look at it that way, do you think that maybe Doyle was going along the same lines with creating Sherlock Holmes to just be a quick, here he is, and that's why he killed him off? Because he was like, "Meh, I don't mean for him to be my sole provider, so to speak.
Yeah.
Um, he's just something I want to create, and I want to show my homage to Poe. So it is
I mean,
something to
I think
complicate,
it's almost certain that Doyle didn't when he first wrote Study in Scarlet, which, as you say, these are
Mhm.
serialized uh, uh, stories.
Mhm.
When he first wrote Study in Scarlet, I don't think he was ever envisioning that we had him end up doing 60 stories.
Right.
That was not his starting point. It was just kind of getting through a kind of a rough patch. But to get back to the earlier point about, to what extent is Holmes standing on the shoulders of Dupin? I mean, yes, Poe kind of created this genre of the armchair detective. But I think it's fair to say, and Micah made a very good point, that you're talking about the first the first Holmes story or the last one, because there's huge changes over these decades.
Mhm.
But the Holmes character is, is so much more active. He's not just a armchair detective. He's actually out at the sites. He's got his magnifying glass. He's laying on the floor. He's in person. He's putting on disguises. So he's a much more active. And in fact, it's probably Holmes's brother, Mycroft, who's more of the Dupin character, right? Because he's the one
Right.
who's seen as too lazy to actually get out of his chair, and just kind of throws his hints and clues to Holmes. So again, it seems to me that Holmes starts from Poe's Dupin, but it becomes his own thing. I would argue, partly because Doyle was more of an adventure writer, and he wanted these things to be much more punchy, and Poe's stories are much more cerebral, as I say. There's these very long passages in The Mystery of Marie Roget, or the other Dupin stories, that just go on and on and on without a word of dialogue, or without an action happening. But that's my opinion.
No, that's a very good point. The cerebral, definitely, especially with Marie Roget. I like that story. It's not my favorite one, but it, it's yes, it's long and it's difficult to read sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's not complete. That's part of
Oh
the
yeah.
problem. Yeah, I'm sorry, Micah. I was just
No, no,
going to
no.
say
Oh,
that
go ahead.
the story of Marie Roget is because he based it on a real life crime and he was using the reality of what's going on in the crime to put in the story. That's what makes it so droll in certain areas, because it's like reading just the facts on a newspaper,
Mhm.
things that people have recounted, or just supposition or something like that. It's like reading a true crime report, not actually the creation of a documentary of the true crime. So
Mhm.
I think that's where he failed in that story, is he was trying to bring it as close to reality to this crime that was happening, but it's like Poe got stuck and couldn't figure out how to make it his own. He's like, "Oh, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like a mix of a reporter and a writer and an armchair detective. So, but I'm stuck. I don't know where to go."
Well, and he was also trying to solve the actual crime while the police were trying to solve
Mhm.
it as well. And I think that's what hurt the story too.
Well, and he was very under, what am I going to say? He didn't have the right tools to solve that crime,
Hmm.
because he was trying to do it from just what was being said.
His
But he didn't
armchair.
have, yeah, from his armchair detective, you can't really solve the crime without knowing all the things of the crime, seeing the crime, and some things about detectives, they probably didn't tell him everything, and especially didn't tell the newspapers everything, because
Right.
they don't. They always hold something back.
Mhm.
So, in that, I agree. Out of the three Dupines, it is not, to me, a Dupine story. It's more of a bad retelling of a newspaper article.
Mhm.
I can't. I mean, I'd rather go and read about the real case of Mary Rogers than I would read Poe's about Marie Roget. That's sad to say, because to me, it's not a story. It is an incomplete thought that Poe has made. So,
Yeah.
Micah, what were you going to say? Go ahead.
Mhm. You're right. It's no words with a mummy. So I completely
No.
understand. No, I gotta say, Steve, you have read my mind, sir. There was a speaker on the 6 Degrees of Poe Zoom meeting who said that not only did did Poe, and specifically the story of Marie Roget, help create Sherlock Holmes? It helped create Mycroft Holmes, the armchair detective.
Yeah.
Gil, that was me. That's right. I forgot. I was the one who said that. Steve, you have read my mind, sir.
I'm sorry to steal
And-
your words.
No,
I knew it came
dude,
from an authoritative source.
That's right. You were quoting me, dude. You're reading my mind. I need this gig. I don't need the competition, Steve. Stop
That's
reading
right.
my mind. But anyway, the point is, I love it. I love this. And Jeannie, I understand everything you're saying. Yeah, it's very dry, as you mentioned earlier, because it's just reading a police report. But in a way, Poe created the armchair detective, which not only helped create Sherlock Holmes because he solved a lot of his stuff in his mind, sitting in his armchair. As Steve said, he's a very active guy, and that's what Doyle wanted. But at the same time, he was so brilliant, and he even bragged about this. I can solve a lot of mysteries just from our little room in 221B Baker Street.
Yeah.
On top of that, the another fan theory is that Nero Wolfe, probably the most famous quote unquote current armchair detective, is the son of Sherlock Holmes and Irene Adler. And again, we would not have this trope without Poe, and especially without Marie Roget. So I just love the parallel, even though it is a dry police report. You're absolutely right, Jeannie.
Mhm.
And the other thing I'll say, and I want to make sure I say this before I forget, C. Auguste Dupin has the same initials as Arthur Conan Doyle. Coincidence? I think not. Anyway, yeah, this is true. It's the same initials.
Yes.
Yes.
It's the same initials. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, as much as you mentioned, Marie Roget is probably the weakest of the three. At the same time, it also helped launch an entirely new way of looking at detective work, at least in literature.
Absolutely.
I guess one other thing that we probably ought to acknowledge here is in Doyle's stories, Sherlock Holmes explicitly acknowledges Poe's stories and acknowledges Dupin.
Mhm.
And in fact, Sherlock Holmes disparages Dupin and says, and I'll read a quote, that he was a very inferior fellow, very showy and superficial, had some analytical genius, no doubt, but he was by no means such a phenomenon as Poe appeared to imagine. And what's interesting is, then Holmes goes on in a later story in, I think, the Cardboard Box, Micah, is that right? In the Cardboard Box.
Yes.
To
The Adventure of the Dancing Men.
To repeat the same trick of breaking into Watson's thoughts the way that Dupin did for the narrator.
Mhm.
So clearly, Doyle, I think, felt some real attraction of the Dupin character and the way that Poe had arranged it. And in fact, there's a story that I don't think is apocryphal, that Doyle received a letter from somebody who's angry at him saying, how dare you disparage Dupin in this way?
Yeah.
And Doyle came back and said, it wasn't me that disparaged him, it was Holmes.
Ah!
And the idea being that I'm creating this character, Holmes, who looks down upon Dupin, but Conan Doyle do not. That's just how my character is developing. So
Right.
I think it's just worth noting that Doyle was he acknowledged, I think, what he owed to Poe. And in fact, he had said something along the lines of, literature owes a tremendous amount to Poe for the work, for his contributions.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's absolutely right. He does the trick 2 more times after saying, "Oh, that Dupin guy's an idiot," and then he keeps doing the Dupin. He keeps quoting Dupin. You're absolutely right, Steve.
Yeah.
And he solves at least 2 cryptograms. I'm trying to think of another writer from his past who was famous for cryptogram. It eludes me. Maybe Rufus Griswold. But anyway, the point is, yes. You're absolutely right, Steve. Doyle owed so much to Poe, even when his Sherlock Holmes claimed not to.
Yeah.
It was wild.
Absolutely. Yeah. It was a reverse psychology way of doing it in a way.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, one of the things that the one story that always sticks with me, and it's a locked room story, the Speckled Band. And I don't want to give anything away because it's got such a great ending, like how, what happens and everything. And so, and I think he also did The Sign of Four was a locked room mystery too. I've read it, but it's been so long ago since I've read that. I think I was probably a lot younger. But I feel like that Doyle paid homage to Poe with those locked room mysteries. Poe created it. That was the first detective fiction. And it's like, let's keep this legacy alive. Agatha Christie did it. So many others have done it. And it's to me one of the most brilliant tropes around. The locked
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
It's just a footnote, but we talk about Doyle criticizing Dupin, and in I can't remember which of the three Dupin stories it was. Dupin criticizes, is it Vidocq, the French kind of first private detective, and so I would say in some ways, even by having Holmes criticize Dupin, that is a homage to Poe having Dupin criticize his predecessor, really the first French armchair detective.
Yeah, that's true. Just keep
Yeah.
keeping that alive, going, continuing the tradition.
Yeah, the whole locker room mystery bit. You're right, and I would argue that in a certain way, the Purloined Letter is kind of like a locker room mystery.
Yeah,
Something is in this room, but you can't figure out what the hell's going on or how it's going on, and it's
yes,
full of every cop in town.
yeah.
That does kind of describe a locker room mystery, and yeah, Poe was a master at it. I will say that I have found another detective named Judge D, who was uh, based on a real guy in ancient China. And it was during the Victorian era. A Victorian writer started writing murder mysteries using this particular character out of ancient China named Judge D. But there was already a mystery written about him before that happened.
Okay.
So yeah, so I want to see the doc slam Judge D and say, "Oh, that Judge D guy, he's a hack." Yeah, and so what I will call the Steve Domino effect of every detective slamming the detective before him. I want to see Doc do that to Judge D. That'd be awesome.
That totally would.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually watching Monk right now for the first time
Oh yeah.
through. I think we're in the next to last season, and to me, he's such a combination of so many different detectives put together. I mean, there's a little Dupin, there's a little Holmes, there's a little Poirot. I mean, just and I love his style. I didn't know if I was going to like him or not, but I mean, I don't want the series to end. It's fantastic. And again, without Dupin, without Poe, we wouldn't
Yeah.
have any of this.
Yeah. And go ahead, Steve.
I, Nothing.
Oh yeah. So Monk and a Psych came out, if you remember this.
Yes.
I think a little after Monk, but none of this, as you say, would have existed without Holmes and without coming out and saying it. A lot of these writers were saying these detectives, like Monk and Psych and Holmes, there was something going on with them mentally and intellectually that is different than the rest of us. And
Yes.
then finally, there's a podcast right now called Sherlock and Co., where they are now kind of like what the BBC did with Sherlock around 15 years ago with Benedict Cumberbatch. The Brits are doing it again, and they're putting Sherlock Holmes in the modern era. It's now a podcast. You can't get more modern than that.
That's interesting.
And these writers are coming out and saying, yes, he's autistic. He's on the spectrum. He's neurodivergent. And they're using the terms that these writers kind of alluded to, like in Monk and Psych. but now the writers are coming out and saying, yes, we acknowledge this, we recognize this, and we're going to talk about it, and we're going to put it in these stories. So that whole monk mentality and psych mentality, and now we might even call it neurodivergence as a compliment. It all kind of started with Sherlock Holmes, although Dupin was arguably one of the first in literature to exhibit that behavior.
Absolutely.
Well, and Dupin wasn't he would close off all the windows and darken the room, and it would only go out at night.
Yeah.
And then Holmes would take all the cushions off the sofa, throw them on the ground, have to be silent for the next, day, wouldn't eat food. So I think the idea of these, quirks added to the character, Doyle or Poe wouldn't be using terms like neurodivergent, but
right.
Sure. They were on the spectrum in the sense they were like more than a standard deviation away from the average person.
Yes.
Partly it makes them interesting, but I think partly Doyle and Poe saw that to have that kind of incredibly rational mind, you can't be wired like everyone else, just interested in, everyday kind of social niceties.
Mm-hmm. I would totally agree with that. And I think in that same vein of what Poe created and Doyle took and created with Holmes, I think a lot of detectives that have been created since then, they do have these characteristics, and they've just, they're making them even more different as each one comes. And I love it. I love it.
Yeah, there's a theory. Oh, sorry to interrupt, Carmen.
Oh,
Go
no, no,
ahead.
no, you're fine. No, you go ahead. You go ahead. Because
Well,
it changed the
you did
topic a
mention.
little.
Oh, yeah. So that you did mention female Watsons. There was a brilliant series out of Japan called Miss Sherlock, where both
I've heard
characters
of
were
it.
female.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and that Holmes, quote unquote Holmes, had to wear ear defenders, and she's constantly smacking her ears because
Oh,
of the noise. And while she's solving crimes, while she's at the crime scene, and they really delve into the psychology of it, and just the fact that it's two women interacting with each other, it has a whole new dynamic.
yeah.
But again, this wouldn't exist without Doyle, and that wouldn't exist without Poe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I was saying, speaking of Watsons, that's what I was going to bring up. So looking at Watson versus the unnamed narrator, I think they are very similar in the fact of they are the ones, the sidekick telling the stories. It's not really Holmes telling a story. It's not Dupin telling the story. And so I love that aspect of it because, especially from the unnamed narrator, is he really telling the truth or is he exaggerating, very strongly? And so I just kind of get y'all's thoughts on the differences, what Holmes did, because Holmes definitely created a long-term sidekick that everyone can associate. So just thoughts on that.
Micah?
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. In both instances, they become kind of an everyman,
Yeah.
or every person. So I think I have a feeling that's why Poe made that choice not to give the narrator a name,
Yeah.
so that we could relate to him more. I call it the Stanley Spider-Man effect. Stanley was asked, "Why is Spider-Man so popular?" And Stanley, the first thing he said in this particular interview was, Spider-Man has a mask and a costume that covers his entire body, which means it could be anyone under there.
Yeah.
You could be Watson. You could be the unnamed narrator in the three Dupin stories,
Mhm.
and that was part of the brilliance of it. Although Doyle injected a lot of his own personality and projected a lot of his hopeful personality into Watson,
Mhm.
I think we can all relate to Watson. It would be very difficult for any of us to really relate to Holmes, but we can definitely relate to Watson. And that's one of the reasons why these stories are so good, because Watson is so crucial. Take it away, Steve.
Oh, I completely agree. I think that, you talk about this idea of the everyman. I think initially for Doyle, Watson was largely the narrator. I mean, he meets Holmes and he describes Holmes. He ends up, rooming with Holmes. He's kind of just giving his observations, but it's less about Doyle, more about Holmes. But I think again, as the stories progress, I'm sorry, Watson becomes more of a actor. He kind of comes into his own. He
Mhm.
falls in love with some of the women. He plays a part in helping Holmes on resolving some of the mysteries. So, so I think an interesting experiment would be a thought experiment would be if Poe had continued to write the Dupin mysteries, 56 short stories and 4 novellas, would the Dupin character and the unnamed narrator have evolved in a way similar to what Holmes and Watson
A
had?
great, that's a
So again, I agree about this everyman character. I just think that by the end of the series, uh, Watson is really much more fleshed out than the named narrator ever was.
absolutely. Hmm.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah. Micah, did you have any other thoughts on that?
Oh, no, Steve put it brilliantly. And yeah, especially by the end of the canon, we feel like we now know Watson in a way that we may never really know Holmes.
Mhm.
Yeah, Holmes can still be cryptic and inscrutable, but Watson, we feel like we know this guy, and we want to have a pint with him at the bar, and maybe pick up some ladies, as Steve mentioned. Yeah, this is very relatable, and I don't think Dupin, as brilliant, he's wonderful and brilliant. I don't think he's that relatable, and the narrator helped that out. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so, Micah, this is a great time if you would like to tell us about your play based on
Yes.
Watson.
Yeah. It kind of goes back a little bit to a few of the things that Steve was saying. And there's something that we all play, and I know Steve is familiar with this. It's called the Great Game. And the idea is, what if all of this is true? What if Arthur Conan Doyle was simply the literary agent for a real doctor named Dr. Watson, who
Mhm.
was the real roommate of this brilliant detective named Sherlock Holmes?
Mhm.
And if you play the game, you'll notice all these weird inconsistencies. And kind of like what Steve was talking about, why does he slam Dupin and then pulls a Dupin in at least 2 other stories? And why are all these weird chronology inconsistencies? And so I played the game, and the play I wrote called here's the image of it. Last Case of Dr. Watson. He delivers his final lecture of his life, where he talks to Pinkerton detectives and members of the Society for Psychical Research, a group that, at least for a while, Doyle was a member of. And he gives his final confession as to why there are all these inconsistencies and what it all means. And so that's the play that I wrote. And again, the play wouldn't exist without Doyle, and Doyle's work wouldn't have existed without Poe. So thank you for asking.
Yes, absolutely. And
And
so,
when does
Yeah.
it premiere and where?
Well, thank you, Jeanie. Oh, you're a good manager. Yes. So we open in November. I still have all these monologues to memorize, but we open in November in downtown LA. It's in a place called the Count's Den,
ooh,
which is, yeah, they created a Victorian drawing room in downtown LA. So I get to perform this play there. And Holly Knightley was the first one to read it and to give us a review, and it was absolutely brilliant. So, Holly, if you happen to hear this, shout out to you. Thank you for all of your support, and thank you for asking, Jeanie.
Welcome.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Is it going to be recorded where we can see it?
Someone was asking me that earlier. Yeah, I'm going to ask the producer or the owner of the venue. Can we set up a camera, even like my lowly iPhone 14, and just hit record
Mhm.
and keep a video archive of it that maybe we can share with other people.
Yeah,
Nothing's the same as being there live, but that way we
absolutely.
can share it with other people. So thank you for asking, and fingers crossed we'll be able to do that.
All right. Awesome. Jeannie, any last thoughts on Poe, Doyle?
No, I think we have made our case.
All right.
Micah or Steve, any last thoughts on any of?
Not to be churlish, but it's notable to me. It stood out to me because I reread a study in Scarlet the other day in preparation for this. And in that story, Doyle misspells Edgar Allan Poe's name. He spells Allen in the
Wow.
story. So I mean, if for nothing else, that's your little piece of trivia that you can use at your next trivia night at your local pub.
Yeah.
But for somebody who admired Poe so much, is a little sloppy. So that's all I got.
Oh, that's so interesting. Absolutely. And oh,
That's interesting.
Micah, I was going to tell you,
Yeah.
like, because you brought up Rufus Griswold in, jest and everything. When Jean
Yeah.
and I talk about him, we do the Seinfeld way of Newman. It's Rufus or Griswold.
Right. Right. Yeah. You just imagine him bursting through your apartment door and you're like, Lucas Griswold. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's very Seinfeld. Very nice. Yeah. Oh, one last thing I wanted to tell you guys, and this is
Yeah.
going to sound weird, but there's a method to my madness. You guys have been kind enough to let me be on your show and listen to me. But one thing I keep forgetting to mention that I need to mention. Okay, so stay with me here.
Okay.
Stay with me. I'm going to walk you through this. Okay.
All right.
My mom has a half sister, my half aunt. My half aunt split with her husband, my ex half uncle by marriage. My ex half uncle by marriage has a sister. My ex half uncle by marriage's sister was married to John Guare, the playwright who wrote the play 6 Degrees of Separation. You know me. You now are exactly 6 degrees away from the guy who coined the term 6 degrees of separation. You're welcome. Get to know
That
me.
is awesome.
Yes.
I love it. I love it.
Isn't that funny?
Woohoo!
Yeah, I was in his apartment one day looking at all his books, and I thought, wait a minute, I'm related to this guy. How far am I related? Five different ways, 5 different degrees. Oh, anybody knows me is now 6, so that's you. So you're welcome.
That is fantastic. Thank you.
That's actually beautiful.
Yes.
Thank you,
Oh,
Steve.
synergy at
Micah,
its best.
I thought you were launching into a I'm my own grandpa kind of story. It's not.
Right.
No, that would
Right.
be my story, not his. So yeah,
Fair enough.
true,
Fair
Jean.
enough.
my neck of the woods. But yeah,
Yeah, I was going to say the only other time I've, kind of heard about that gentleman is from someone I met at, it was a tiki event, and it's this couple that own a record producing company, and they are friends with someone that knows him. And so, because they were like, maybe we could ask him to come on your show. And I was like, oh, that's great. And we just haven't worked that out. But now that we are 6 degrees from him.
Please, 6 degrees. You too, Steve. You too, Jeannie. Yeah.
yes,
This is awesome.
we have met our quota. We have reached.
There you
the
go.
6
There you go,
degrees.
Jeannie.
Yes, but we're not
There you go.
done. We just started season
No.
5.
Now that'd be really cool if it'd been the beginning of season 6, but then that'd be like 666. So that would go way too long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's not we go dark, but let's not go dark.
Well, you started it. I just go there. And what can I say?
All right. Well, I guess if nobody has anything else,
I just want to say thank you, Carmen and Jeannie and
Oh.
Steve. It was a pleasure. Thank you for letting me be here, guys.
thank you guys for being
Yes, this
with
was a lot
us.
of fun.
This has been awesome.
Enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for joining
guys.
us. It was
Yes.
awesome.
So on that note,
We are
Oh.
out.
Out.
When I wish to find out how wise or how stupid or how good or how wicked is any one or what are his thoughts at the moment, I fashion the expression of my face as accurately as possible in accordance with the expression of his, and then wait to see what thoughts or sentiments arise in my mind or heart as if to match or correspond with the expression.
Very nice.